All right, today we're diving into a source with a pretty wild take on world history. It basically argues that the story we've all learned about empires falling and new nations being born might not be the whole truth. In fact, the core idea here is that the empire never really ended at all. It just changed its clothes. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The source we're looking at is claiming that all the symbols of freedom, declarations of independence, new flags, anthems, were all just part of a show, an elaborate performance designed to make us feel free, while the old powers just quietly step behind the curtain.
Okay, so if the history we know is just a play, then who wrote the script? And what's the real story going on backstage? Well, according to this source, the plot is all about 3 hidden pillars of power that have been pulling the strings this whole time.
So let's get into these 3 pillars. The whole idea is that the empire didn't fall. It just rebranded. It hid itself behind a new set of rulers. The big question is, who are they?
First up, according to this theory, is the Vatican. The argument isn't about religion, exactly. It's about the power to grant legitimacy, the authority to say who is and who is not a valid ruler. This source claims that this spiritual and legal power never vanished, it just became the invisible ink that Western law is written in.
The second pillar? The British monarchy. But again, the claim here is that its real, lasting power wasn't about land. It was about controlling the seas. By dominating global trade through something called admiralty law, it effectively controlled the world's economic bloodstream. And that's a power, the source says, that never really went away.
And here's the third pillar, and this is where the theory says the power becomes almost completely hidden: private bankers. The claim is that they pulled off something no emperor ever could. They privatized money itself. This gave them the ability to control entire nations, not with armies, but with something far more effective: debt.
So, you might be wondering, how could these 3 pillars actually enforce their will? Well, the source points to these 2 ancient legal systems as the skeleton holding the whole thing up: canon law to govern the land and admiralty law to govern the sea. The idea is that these ancient rules create an invisible playbook that the entire world is still following, whether we realize it or not.
So how did this all supposedly happen? This is where the source starts to lay out its own alternative timeline, connecting dots that, let's be honest, you probably didn't learn about in history class.
This version of history kicks off with the fall of Rome, arguing its legal systems just got a makeover. It points to real documents, like a papal bull from 1455, as the legal blueprint for conquest. Then it reframes things like the East India Company as basically privatized arms of the empire. And it all leads to the creation of the Bank of England, the moment when state power and private money allegedly became one and the same.
And the source gets very specific about who it sees as the architects of this financial empire. It's not just some shadowy, nameless group. It points to figures like the Rothschilds, J.P. Morgan, and others, and connects them to these key moments where, the claim is, private money directly shaped the future of entire countries.
And the timeline keeps rolling, right into modern history. The American Revolution, framed as theater, arguing that the real financial ties to London were never broken. Then the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913 is presented as the moment America's money supply was handed over. And from there, Bretton Woods and the end of the gold standard are seen as the final moves to lock the entire globe into this system, an empire built not on land, but on debt.
Okay, this is where the source takes a really dramatic turn. It makes one of its boldest claims, that the great, devastating wars of the 20th century weren't accidents. They weren't just tragic mistakes. They were engineered by design.
So, look at this reframing. Where mainstream history sees World War I as this tangled mess of alliances and politics, this source sees a deliberate system reset, a planned event to clear out the old order, centralize financial power, and set the stage for a new global structure. It even warrants that a potential World War III could follow the exact same script.
So after all that, where does this leave us? Well, according to the source, this hidden history isn't just a story. It's meant to be a warning. And it finishes with a really urgent call to action. It actually lays out a kind of roadmap. Step 1 is just to wake up to the possibility that the story you know isn't the full story. Step 2, and it says this over and over, is to do your own research. And it specifically mentions using new tools like AI to sift through data and find connections. Step 3, question the official narratives. And finally, Step 4, unite. The idea is that all the divisions we see are part of the illusion, designed to keep us from seeing what's really going on. And this is really the final message of the source. It presents a pretty stark choice. It says that no matter how deep this alleged deception goes, the future is not set in stone. The choice between buying into the script of division and hate or choosing to rise up together, well, that choice is still ours.
And that's where we'll end it for today. Look, the source material we've just walked through presents an incredibly challenging and, for many, an uncomfortable version of history. It's asking its readers to question the very foundation of what they've been taught. It doesn't claim to have every answer, but it argues very strongly that we should at least be asking the right questions. So, where is that line between the history we can prove and the perception of a hidden script? That's a big question, and one worth thinking about.